Good morning and welcome to this Niagara Connects webinar. We're hosting it with the Age-Friendly Niagara Council. My name is Mary Wiley and I'm the Knowledge Mobilization Lead with Niagara Connects, and we're a program of in-communities, and we're so pleased to be working with the Age-Friendly Niagara Council on all sorts of great things to make Niagara a stronger community in terms of being age-friendly. So just a few housekeeping notes. The webinar is being recorded, and the purpose of that is so that we can share it out as a resource on the Niagara Knowledge Exchange for other people to learn about this work that we're having a conversation about today. All participants are muted, and just to not have any background noise. And if you have questions at any time, please type them into the chat pod, and we'll endeavor to answer those questions as we move along through the conversation. All webinar materials will be sent to participants at the end of the webinar so that you have that information in hand. And we'd like you to be able to share that with your networks. So, the presentation today is part of a project that was generously funded by the Niagara Community Foundation. And maybe we could go to the next slide so that we can see our agenda for today. Now, this work that you're going to hear about today was based on work that was previously done by the Age-Friendly Niagara Council, and Niagara Connects has been acting as the backbone support for that work over a period of number of years. And I think I've heard a few people say it's a great partnership, and I have to agree with that. And we'll be exploring the project that we've been working on for the past year in a little more detail later on. And we're very excited to be presenting the new older adult Infolink. You can see the logo for that up in the corner of the slide. You'll be hearing more about that. Presenters will be Dominic Ventresca, and he's the chair of the interim board for the Age-Friendly Niagara Council, and Rachel Gilmore, who's the project liaison for this project of developing the older adult Infolink. So without any further ado, I'll turn it over to Dominic to speak, and I will mute my microphone. Dominic, take it away.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Mary, for the kind introduction. And as Mary said, I chair the interim board of directors for the Age-Friendly Niagara Council, and I've been involved with the original network for the full time that it's been as a volunteer since it started about a dozen years or so ago. So I'm excited to be able to present to you some developments that are taking place in Niagara relating to older adults. Actually, if you just want to return to that other slide there with the map, and also to participate in this launch today of I think a game-changing tool in Niagara, which will connect older adults with lots of information that they need. So first of all, speaking of older adults in Niagara, Niagara is a pretty special place for many reasons, as we all know. And one of them is the fact that we are among the leading communities in Canada, one of the leading communities in Canada for the number of older people who have chosen to live here, older people. So in this slide, you see that Niagara region has about 36% of its population aged 55 years or more, and that compares to the rest of Canada, which is at about 30%. Okay, so we can go now to the next slide. So in Niagara, thankfully, we've had a group of very dedicated volunteers who have been involved in an age-friendly movement, and a group of community members came together about a dozen years ago and came up with a vision, which has been refined over the dozen years. And so now the vision for Niagara is that it be an age-friendly community, a community for all ages. It's important to note that it is not only for older adults. The focus is on older adults, the age-friendly movement, but it's really intergenerational. And therefore, that's a very important component for the age-friendly movement in Niagara. So now we can go to the next slide. And Age-Friendly Niagara picked up the ball from the World Health Organization, which around this, just before we began here in Niagara as a group of volunteers promoting age-friendly community principles, the WHO came up with 8 domains of age-friendly communities. They're listed there. And again, these don't pertain just to older people, as you'll see, and that's going to be a theme, that what's good for older people is good for people of all ages. So outdoor spaces, transportation, housing, and all the rest that you see there. So those were the kind of the pillars upon which Age-Friendly Niagara built its strategy, and it was around issues like action. First of all, raising awareness, because not everybody knew what an age-friendly community was a dozen years ago. And so we needed to raise awareness, and then we needed to get people interested in taking action locally. Okay, now we can go to the next slide. So age-friendly in Niagara, I mentioned a network and also a council. So there's been a network of about 500 people who receive newsletters and other news on developments that are happening related to older adults. And there is a possibility, if you're not on that distribution list yet, for you to get on it. This network has been people interested in issues around older adults, either being older adults themselves or in some way serving older adults. And in some ways, perhaps serving older adults either as a government agency or a not-for-profit or perhaps as a business. So it's a very good mix of people across Niagara. And in partnership with Niagara Connects, as Mary said earlier, which has served as a backbone organization, and I would agree with that assessment that it's been an excellent partnership and they've been outstanding in supporting the age-friendly Niagara movement through our various grants. We've received grants from the Ontario Trillium Foundation, for example. That was a key couple of 2 or 3 grants that we got earlier on. And most recently, the Ontario Seniors Community Grant, which allowed us to develop a roadmap to becoming a council on aging. Now, to give you a little context there, councils on aging, there are about a dozen of them across Ontario, some as mature as 40 some odd years and others newer. So that is when a community comes together and says, you know, we need to formalize the advocates for older adults and put them onto a council and set them up with the board of directors and get sustainable funding and influence decision-making within that particular area. So we are now have taken that step. And in September of 2021, our network transitioned to becoming a council on aging, and we set up a board and we have plans for the future, which we hope you're going to be a part of. And one of our first achievements, having formed a council, was to present a virtual exhibit at the International Federation on Aging Global Conference in Niagara Falls, which highlighted Niagara and the work of our council and other age-friendly focus groups in Niagara, which we'll be talking about shortly here if we can move on to the next slide. So this graphic, if we can just focus on it there for a second. This one here, this one explains, it's the puzzles. If you're puzzled about who Age-Friendly Niagara is or how it relates to other organizations within Niagara, this I hope will help explain it. So at the top of the puzzle here, we have the Age-Friendly Niagara Council, the board of directors, and there are about 15 volunteers, very enthusiastic, and I'm so impressed with their dedication to this age-friendly movement. So we oversee and we plan various activities and engage with partners and try to move Niagara more and more along the journey to becoming an age-friendly community. We have, as I mentioned earlier, a network of about 500 people who have been showing an interest in age-friendly movement for many, many years. And in 2015, the network at the time, based on input from over 500 people from across Niagara, we launched the Niagara Aging Strategy and Action Plan. And it identified numerous strategies and major goals, and had about 100 action plans that were built up from the grassroots. We had about 100, or we had people at community forums and focus groups in every of the 12 local municipalities, and they came up with priorities around community engagement and recreation and leisure and learning, improved services, systems, and infrastructure that relates to housing and healthcare and so on. And then most recently, well, because I should say that the council and previously the network, we had presented to each of the municipal councils in Niagara and suggested that they form, if they didn't already have one, an advisory committee of older adults to council, appointed by council. So now we have, well, depending, it's about 10 or 11 or so, with one, pending and working on it, having developed a local advisory committee that advises the mayor and the council on issues related to aging. And that group of advisory committees have formed an alliance now, so they can share information and work out problems and so on. So that's a very strong development that shows how older adults in Niagara are getting to be empowered. Okay, so we can move on to the next slide. So it's not all been, meetings and talk and so on. There's been significant work done, which is, of course, I mentioned earlier, we wanted to raise awareness, but also set up local actions. So this slide tells us how, or at least what some of those actions have been. So we've had multiple community forums, which have been attended by hundreds of people across Niagara, an affordable housing one, age-friendly developments. This was a huge one that got over 200 people. Hazel McCallion was the keynote speaker. I know I was on the panel, but it wasn't me that came to hear. Hazel McCallion has, stole the show, and as everyone knows, she's an amazing 90-year-old plus over has been the mayor of Mississauga for a long time, and a great example of what age-friendly can be and how older people can continue to contribute to their community. And we also had one in Pelham just before the pandemic broke, when we had speakers from the Canadian longitudinal study from McMaster University. On a snowy, icy day, we had a few hundred people come together there at the Meridian Community Center. So we've done a lot of that. We've had focus groups organized in concert with our partners like Brock University Rec and Leisure Studies, where social, recreational, culture needs were identified. We've made recommendations to municipal councils. I mentioned how we presented to the municipal council meetings, but we've gotten change on font sizes on road signs, for example, making the font sizes bigger when they replace road signs, so that older people and others who may have difficulty seeing can see the signs. Accessible walkways with benches and washrooms. These are valuable to people like parents with young children and strollers as well. So again, what's good for older people is typically good for people of all ages. And a couple of our communities have worked on age-friendly business guides with the chambers of commerce and helping the businesses be more age-friendly, and also to help campaign, or at least to help candidates who are campaigning at municipal, provincial, federal levels over the last few years. We prepared a brief and distributed to all candidates that would give them insights into some of the issues related to older adults in Niagara. And also during COVID, we took the lead and sponsored some COVID-19 online roundtable meetings where we identified issues related to older adults and some of the possible solutions involving some of the community players like the public health department and others. Okay, next slide. That's where I turn it over to Mary, and she's already introduced herself as the mobilization lead for Niagara Connects and has been very much involved throughout the history of the Age-Friendly Network, and she's going to take a poll and then capably take you through some of the historical milestones that we have to share with you about the Age-Friendly Niagara Network. Okay, over to you, Mary.
Thank you, Dominic. And so before we move on to talk a little bit about the work of the Niagara Aging Strategy and Action Plan and how it has led to where we're at today, we wanted to get a bit of an idea of who's participating in the webinar today. So we have a little poll, and Rachel's going to put the poll up, and then you'll be able to vote on what role you're participating in the webinar today. And if none of these choices suit, you can click on Other. And we'll just give you a minute to choose your option on the poll, and Rachel's going to keep an eye, and when she sees that Most people have participated. Then we'll show you the results. All right, so quite a few service providers and older adults. That's great, because that's what this is all about, is us all working together. People who are family or caregivers of an older adult. Some municipal staff, elected officials, researchers, and others. And unfortunately, in these polls, we're not able to have an option, please explain. So we'll leave that up to everyone's imagination. All right, so I think we can close that down and we'll go on to the next slide. Thank you, Rachel. And Lisa, who's Putman, who's working in the background with our slides. So age-friendly Niagara actions. In partnership with the work of Niagara Connects, the Age-Friendly Niagara Network at the time engaged the Niagara-wide community in implementing, in creating and implementing the Niagara Aging Strategy and Action Plan. So the plan was launched in 2015 as a living document, and the idea was for it to evolve, the work of this plan to evolve as the community changes and evolves. So there were over 500 people who participated in building the Niagara Aging Strategy and Action Plan. And there's 5 overarching goals and 100 actions in the plan. So those 5 community goals were about elevating the profile, level of leadership and engagement of seniors in the community, facilitating an active and positive lifestyle for all seniors, optimizing the health and wellness of seniors, improving access and utilization of services and supports, and improving and maintaining a supportive infrastructure. So from 2017 to 2019, the work of beginning to implement the Aging Strategy and Action Plan, which again is an ongoing process, was begun. And those 5 goals and 100 action steps, we engaged a pretty broad group of people in helping us to sort of narrow that down. So out of that work came next steps. And we sort of zeroed in on 3 areas. So advancing strategies based on the Aging Strategy and Action Plan goals in the areas of community engagement and communication, recreation, learning and leisure, and improve services, systems, and infrastructure. So out of this, a major call and something that came up time and time again, in fact, it has come up over and over again in all of the work of the Age-Friendly Niagara Council, is a call to have more people understand how they can access the 211 information, the importance of the information provided by 211. The other thing people wanted to see was a way for older adults to understand what's available to them in their part of Niagara in terms of programs, recreation programs, that sort of thing. So this phrase, development of a common community resource that would compile services, organizations, and programs geared toward older adults, their family, caregivers, and local service providers, is sort of the wording that came out. And that resulted in December 2020, the Age-Friendly Niagara Network at the time, remember it's now changed to a council, but that was the wording at the time, in partnership within communities, 211 in Niagara and Niagara Connects, was awarded a grant from the Niagara Community Foundation to develop this new resource. And that's what we're here to launch today. And I'm going to turn that over to Rachel Gilmore. And she's been working very, very hard on pulling us all together so we can create the older adult Infolink. So over to you, Rachel.
It's been a real pleasure. And I was part of the earlier step in 2019. So it's been great to carry this on. I apologize in advance. I'm getting over a kindergartner cold, so I'll do my best to keep my voice going. So what we've called the Older Adult Infolink was created in coordination with Niagara Connects, who Mary is representing, and 211, both programs of In Communities. As part of developing this site, we wanted to ensure ongoing sustainability and accuracy of the information. And so one of the best parts of this is that we draw directly from 211 Community Service Database to put information into this site. So everything is automatically updated through the 211 system, and we draw from it and place it here into the older adult Infolink, which is housed on the Age-Friendly Niagara website. So it's a clever way of making sure we can keep the information accurate and that we can show what is happening like in real time in the community without somebody in the back end having to make sure that that's happening. Again, pardon me for my voice. So the information is maintained and there's no ongoing maintenance required from Age-Friendly Niagara Council for most of the data records. The data records are each of those little individual services that show up, and we'll go through an example of how this actually works on the ground or on the website so that everybody can get a sense of how this functions. In communities, along with 211, keep and maintain records for social services and government services serving people in the Niagara region. They don't keep for-profit organizations unless they're meeting a need that is not sufficiently supported by the nonprofit or government services. So they include, for instance, some private counselors for mental health supports who indicate their services are on a sliding scale because there's such long wait lists for other for the services that are coming through nonprofit and government. Next slide. The older adult Infolink is divided into categories, and we had a lot of conversation with service providers as well as older adults about how to divide all this information so that it made sense. And we really wanted to leverage the work that's already being done in our community through the Living in Niagara Quality of Life report that Niagara Connects produces. So we chose to highlight their sectors as our categories. And you can see on the screen right now the list of what those are. So these include arts, culture, and heritage, community belonging, community safety, economic prosperity, environment, health and wellness, housing and shelter, learning and education, recreation and sport, transportation and mobility, and work and employment. Pardon me. There were a lot of conversations about how we can make sure that these make sense to people and how we can organize all of this great information of what's available in our communities. So these main categories have a brief description that appears when you click on them individually on the website. That way, if somebody says, I don't really know what community belonging means, they can click into it and they'll have a small paragraph show up that says what this is about with a list of subcategories showing up underneath. And that's where you can click into the specifics and find that record of what you're looking for. I like sort of like a giant dictionary or encyclopedia that's available online and organized in a way that hopefully makes sense. So we have an example here above on your screen right now. There's arts, culture, and heritage. And when you click into that, you see that brief description there that highlights what this category is about. And below, bullet points in blue that link you directly into the subcategory. So if I'm looking for a list of public libraries as related to arts, culture, and heritage, I could click into that public libraries list and it would bring up the public libraries available in Niagara. Again, health and wellness is probably one of our meatiest categories. In this, we have that brief description as well. And below those blue subcategories where you could click into more specific information. We also wanted to make sure that we provided the opportunity to display all. So at the top beside that main category, there's a function that says display all. You can click in there and it will bring up every record in that category, organized by alphabetical order. So in the next slide, one of the things that we wanted to give an example of here, so like we were looking at the health and wellness, is once you click into that specific subcategory, this example was hospitals and diagnostic imaging or radiology. This is an example of what the record would look like. So in that blue bar, that's that first record that shows up. That's the first alphabetical record, Barclay Diagnostic Imaging. And then you are able to scroll through the records by alphabetical order to find something that suits your need. One of the things that became really evident when we talked to older adults and talked to service providers was the need to make a really readily available list of that you could refer back to if you kind of got lost in the records. So on that left side of the screen, under the older adult Infolink graphic, you can see there's a click here to return, which would bring you back to where you started. Or there is again that list of categories and subheadings so that you can automatically go back to that spot and go through. So you think, I didn't mean to click hospitals, I meant to click a different support. You're able to do that. Again, we wanted to make sure that this was really easy to navigate, and that was one of the most important pieces of feedback we got when we did our focus groups. Yeah, I think the next slide, these are the only external links that are hosted on our Infolink. And that is one of the things that came up with the work done with Niagara Connects and the Niagara Aging Strategy and Action Plan was the desire to have recreation guides in one place. So because we are a two-tier municipality, or two-tier government with municipalities, the municipalities all have their own recreation guides, and it can be really difficult to navigate where they are and how to access them digitally. So what we wanted to do was make sure that they were all easy to access via this info link by municipality. So you can see here, they're found in two places on the site. The first place is at the bottom of that home page, which we showed you a few slides back. At the bottom, you'll see a list, local community leisure guides in Niagara by municipality. When you click on those little blue links of the different municipalities, it will open up a separate web page with that link. Again, they're found at the bottom of that category and subcategory listing we just talked about, that sort of title page list that's found on that left side of your screen. Table of contents, not title page, table of contents on the left side of your screen. So under that final category, work and employment, you'll see local community leisure guides in Niagara. And again, the listing alphabetically of the municipalities where you can click in and it'll open up in a separate web page. Pardon me. These are external, so they're not found in the 211 database where we're pulling most of our records from. These are the only ones that aren't from 211. So this is the only regular maintenance we have to do for this site to ensure it's up to date. And that's usually at like quarterly new leisure guides that come out from the different municipalities themselves. So we're going to go on to a second poll. I know it's a lot of information that we've kind of come at you with quickly, but we wanted to get a sense of how everybody feels about this centralized access. So I will launch the poll. Here we go. Overwhelmingly, it's looking positive, which is great. That's great. Looks like most people have answered. Give it a couple more seconds here. And they should pop up on your screen. So that's great news that most people are finding this to be a positive and beneficial thing for our community, and something that we can continue to grow on. So Dominic, I'm going to put it over to you, and Dominic's going to give us a little bit more on next steps.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Rachel, and thank you for taking us through that information and overcoming your cold there, and and giving you give your child full credit for her participation in this. The next slide will be about next steps, and we can just turn over to that next slide. It's the future work of the Age-Friendly Niagara Council. So Rachel, first of all, referenced the brevity and rapidity, I guess, of her presentation, and but yet it was quite informative. But we recognize that without the opportunity to test it or play with it, that there would be some need for follow-up. And when this tool was being developed, the folks like Rachel and Terry were good enough to beta test it, and involved a bunch of us older adults to go through it and see how it works and so on. So it is, I can tell you, a relatively easy tool to use, but we're going to develop a how-to video that you and others that you refer this tool to can check on, and then walk you through how to use it if you need that, because it's a fairly easy tool to use to begin with. So as an age-friendly council, we would like to get community recognition, as these other councils across Ontario have, and then publicly seek members to serve on the board, and also seek funding from local government to help sustain an organization like a Council on Aging, and also to have lead not-profit organizations and businesses belong as members, both participating in the work of the council, receiving advocacy efforts from the council, being receptive to them, and also hopefully contributing some financial or in-kind support, so that the council can continue to serve the needs of the Niagara community. And I mentioned earlier the formation of the Niagara Older Adult Alliance, which is a product of all the presentations we made to municipal councils, and the efforts made by municipalities to set up whatever they call them, senior citizens or seniors or age-friendly. And then in Niagara-on-the-Lake, it's a wellness committee. So we've got different names, but they're all serving in an advisory capacity to municipal councils. So this alliance is a huge step forward for the empowerment of older adults in Niagara. And I'd just like to finish this last next steps slide by doing a couple of acknowledgements, and that is, I mentioned earlier, the insightful and dedicated Age-Friendly Niagara Council volunteers who have been tremendous in supporting this effort over the years. Niagara Connects for their years of outstanding backbone support, without which we could not have moved as far as we have in the period of time, and also to In Communities for their expertise and in developing this tool. The idea germinated from one of our volunteers who said, wouldn't it be nice? And of course, every focus group we had, older adults would tell us, we don't know enough about what's going on in our community. Well, from one of our volunteers saying, maybe we could develop a pamphlet or, something like that. We thought, well, yeah, certainly written material is important, but there's so much material, one can't just put it in a book or in something like that. And then, in the old days, we used to have the Orange Book here in Niagara, but this tool, which is extracting from the volumes of information that 211 has, and extracting what is related to older adults in Niagara, and then going even further by adding, again, in response to focus groups that said, we don't want to be isolated. We want to be active in our community. So therefore, the leisure guides from each municipalities being added to the repertoire here, it's a great advance. And of course, we're indebted to the to the Niagara Council, the Niagara Community Foundation for funding this effort. And I want to acknowledge also the participants today, hoping that you're receptive to this information, that it will be of use to you personally, or that you refer it to others. And it's for older adults and for others who are interested in older adults. It could be family caregivers, it could be service agencies, it could be municipal councillors, federal or provincial politicians who are always, asked for information to help, older adults that are among their constituents. So I want to acknowledge your interest today, and also hopefully your support in helping to spread the good news. Okay, that's it for me.
Thanks, Dominic. And I know Rachel is going to facilitate now any questions that come up. Now, there've been a few have come up in the Q&A, in the chat box, and all really great. The main one that came up, I think, is how can we help to promote this? This is an amazing tool. So maybe that's a great place to start, Rachel.
Yeah, for sure. So Mary has provided the link in the chat box, but it's Age-Friendly-Niagara.com. When the site is live now, so when you click on to Age-Friendly Niagara, that homepage will show up, and an access to the info link will be available there. After this, there's also been some questions about availability of this webinar. It has been recorded, is being recorded, and it will be packaged as well as the slides and some other information, and sent to all participants, and also made available through the knowledge exchange. So we're really hoping that all of this information can just be pushed out across Niagara. So feel free to share with your contacts when that comes through, and that should come through shortly. There's also been some questions about multiple languages, which has come up. It came up as well as we were developing this tool. So there's been, as well as questions about literacy, questions about other information to put on to this kind of site. And that all came up as well as we were developing this through our focus groups. So it's great that we're hearing questions that we've heard from the community before, and that we have already identified as important. So this is a first step. It's a first go at centralizing this information. And we fully anticipate that there's a lot of different places that this can go, and that there's a lot of movement forward that can happen from this kind of starting spot. So the languages, and as well as adding in different kinds of information, is something that Age-Friendly can continue to work towards as the site matures and develops over time. Other than that, there will be that video available, the orientation video available on our FAQ portion of this website, the info link, that will provide some basic information written, as well as that little video. And great suggestion to make sure that it's AODA compliant and subtitled, and we can make sure of that as we move forward. And as well, we'll make sure to include 211's inclusion and exclusion policy, so it's clear about what's included in these records and what's not. I think I caught most of these questions. If there's something else, you can put them in the chat.
So there was a question earlier. Terry, by the way, Terry Bruce is busy typing in the background. Of course, Terry's been integral to this work too. That's no surprise to anyone. So there was a question about faith communities. Maybe you mentioned this, Rachel, and I missed it, but I think Terry responded that faith community and communities information is on 211 if there are programs being provided geared to the community. And I know we'll be sharing information out through social media as well to promote the tool. this new tool, and it will be a work in progress. So the question about us making a presentation to the Accessibility Advisory Committee at the region, I would say that's a yes. And I think there are some other opportunities too. So does anyone else have any other questions they'd like to, or comments?
I just saw one about who do we contact in order to request corrections to information. So you can directly do that through In Communities 211. And that's how regular updating of the records is done anyway. So that's how it kind of remains sustainable for us, is that they automatically have that built into their systems.
It's a really good example of using, taking the resources we have in our community and adding value to them, taking them to another level through partnerships, right? It's actually a shining example of that. All right, so if there are, I see all kinds of opportunities coming up here. We'll have to save the chat box information so we don't miss any of these notes, Rachel. So just a heads up, there will be an evaluation coming out to you. It will be just a couple of really short questions, just to get your feedback on the value of this event as a learning opportunity, and if you have suggestions for the future. And we will be sending out a package with the recording of the webinar. It will probably come out early next week. The recording of the webinar and the slide deck as a PDF and any related resources. There's a really great new 2-page brochure that's actually, it's on the Age-Friendly Niagara website under the About Us, but we'll send that as a PDF so you have that as well. And it just explains what the Age-Friendly Niagara Council is doing now. So it's a bit of updated information for you all in well-designed 2-pager. And I think that's about it. Is there anything to add, Dominic or Rachel, that you know of?
Just to say that it's gratifying to see the number of affirmative comments and the willingness to help spread the good news. So that I think speaks well to the efforts of In Communities, and particularly Rachel and Terry, for the tremendous work that they've done for our community. And it's in response to grassroots. It's one important thing that we always need to involve people on the ground, so to speak, and or older adults in this case were that source. And from the original idea to the testing, yeah, I think we welcome people to spread this news around through their networks.
And thanks again to the Community Foundation for the support. That support actually came through the David S. Howe's funding stream through the Niagara Community Foundation. And I may be a little biased, but I think it's a perfect application of those resources, because it is driven, this is all driven by the community. There was some mention of our libraries, and certainly the public library community across Niagara is very supportive of this work. We've heard loud and clear. They actually helped us with some of the foundational steps to build this tool. And one of the quotes I remember from that is that there's so much information always evolving that it's a little bit difficult for them to keep on top of everything. So they just love it when something is driven by the 211 database, because it is kept up to date all the time. So that makes a lot of sense. All right.
I think as if we've missed anything, feel free to reach out to us. An email will come forward with all of this information, and if there's something we've missed, you can always connect with somebody from this team to help answer any questions. So yeah, thank you. Thanks all of you and the panelists. Thank
you. And we'll give you the gift of a few minutes of time. I'm quoting Tammy Dumas on that one.
All right,
Thank you.
To all.